Hey guys, what's up? It's Finch here, and today we are going to be discussing Scarlet and Violet overused. Yes, that is correct. The wait that has been going on for a bit now is over. SV finally came out on, well, actually today, the 18th of November. It was released on Pokemon Showdown late in the evening, my time on the 17th, and around the world, at their respective midnights, essentially. I right now have a thread here that I wrote up. It's like a multiple pages long worth of writing, basically, so we're going to get on to the summary of it and focus on the important stuff. We're going to discuss what is on the tiering radar for preliminary SVOU. Mind you, this is after just a singular day, not after weeks or months, so everything is to be determined still. There are Pokemon that may seem broken right now that maybe in a week or maybe in a day will seem less broken, or those fears could be expedited and they can be seen as even more broken. We're going to have to wait and see on a lot of these, and I think we're going to have a preliminary round of voting from the SSCU Council on the most dynamic Pokemon in the metagame. As you see, alerts and excitement fluttering in, of course. We're going to have a vote likely at the end of this weekend, I'd imagine, so we might be seeing bans on Sunday or Monday for the most absolutely broken things, but generally right now, the philosophy is that we're going to try and limit the bans to the most extreme Pokemon rather than the things that are maybe normally broken or borderline. That way, we're going to have a metagame where you still get to play with your new toys, you still get to have fun, and we're going to still at least try and edge towards competitiveness. As an extension of that means that there are some Pokemon that are on this radar that, are really, really like clear-cut Ubers. And then there are some that maybe are more borderline. And those that are more borderline, maybe we won't vote ban on initially, even if we think they're broken, just to give them some more time to develop and see how they react once the more clear-cut broken ones are gone. Without further ado, though, we're going to go ahead and discuss everything that's on the radar. You see 8 Pokemon here. I'm going to go through all 8 of them in this video, maybe only a couple minutes apiece just to not keep this too long, as you could also read the post or discuss with your friends or read the metagame discussion thread, OU room. There are a whole slew of resources out there at your disposal, of course, but I don't want to tell you guys what to think. I want to tell you guys my opinions, my thoughts, the council's thoughts thus far, and you could then play and draw your own conclusions, and I think that's the lovely part of a preliminary metagame state. Before we discuss these, though, we do want to discuss the elephant in the room, and I just went over, the things I just went over here. This is the preliminary metagame, we're developing that. So let's start with this. Terastalizing in particular. There's a Terastal Phenomenon actually going on in the Plateau region. That's how Bulbapedia summarized it, but basically it's the phenomenon of terastalizing in that there is a new core mechanic for Generation 9. Now, again, this is a substantial spoiler alert. These Pokemon are going to be spoiler alert. If you're still playing the game and you don't want spoilers, click off this video, click back in a day or two, or maybe click on my newer video come then, as that'll be more up to date. But in the meantime, let's get into it. Assuming you're still here, you don't mind spoilers, you're already playing competitively, or you don't care either way. Terastalizing is the new mechanic. It is completely novel to competitive Pokemon and Pokemon in general. It grants you a new stab, a new typing, based off of whim, or it could amplify the power of your current typing if you'd like to go that route. So for example, if I am a normal type and I want to normal my terastalization, I essentially guarantee myself adaptability. However, if I want to use a fighting type move to hit a steel type that resists me, or a rock type that resists me, I could terastalize fighting and either increase the power of my Terror Blast, which is going to be an 80 base power fighting move in that context. So that's like a stab 80 base power fighting move. Suddenly I become a fighting type, using a slightly stronger Brick Break, for example, against something that would normally resist my stab moves. And in addition to that, it would also start resisting those rock moves that I was discussing before, or resisting, other moves that a fighting type might resist that a normal type would not. That's a big change right there. Obviously, that's a very, bare bones example with normal and fighting. But it comes into play, especially when you see Pokemon that already have dual stab combinations, like Flutter, which seems to be the first Pokemon we're going to discuss. Suddenly, it's weak to Bullet Punch from Scizor. If you go into, say, a Fire type with your Terra, you resist a Bullet Punch and you could take it out with Mystical Fire. Suddenly, revenge killing prospects for faster Pokemon are also limited and thwarted, while coverage power might be expedited, or Terra Blast power might be expedited, and that's a whole other story. Moreover, there are lots of ways to abuse it offensively through giving yourself extra coverage, essentially an OP, stronger hidden power in a sense that comes at a larger opportunity cost as you're using your Terra there, but it does last on you, and it's obviously quite strong. It's definitely a new mode of play, and I have fears that it might be something that could end up ban-worthy or even uncompetitive altogether. Other tiers are saying similar things in their initial reports. However, we are going to do our due diligence and give it a chance. I'm going to say right now that without a shadow of doubt, Terra is going to last through this weekend. It's currently Friday night as I'm saying that, so list a couple days. After that, we're going to have more advanced discussions. The goal right now is that we're likely going to vote on the most problematic Pokemon first, and then we're going to discuss the mechanic afterwards. Maybe Americans of Thanksgiving and this coming Thursday, myself included, maybe around then we'll begin that discussion and we'll really advance it. This way, we can still keep progressing the metagame by removing the most clearly, blatantly broken Pokemon, regardless of the mechanic or not. But in addition to that, we could also do our due diligence in the typing, so we get the best of both worlds. We get the metagame making progress rather than being stalled or at a standstill, so people have something tangible they can clap onto and say, oh, this was the initial, no holds barred, everything is involved metagame, and this was the post X and Y metagame where these two Pokemon, X and Y, whatever they may be, were banned, and so on and so forth. These stages, this chronology to the story that we together are creating of the Scarlet and Violet overused metagame. So that's just a really cool, flattering concept to me, how we're going to kind of go about it, and how we're going to try and preserve the mechanic at first. And if that's possible, that's awesome. It's going to be great for Smogon and competitive Pokemon, as we're going to see a lot of new people drawn in by the mechanic. And if not, then we know we'll at least be doing the best thing for the competitive balance of the metagame, which, as a tier leader, is my first priority. Not pandering to any type of agenda. I just want the most playable, enjoyable, competitive metagame, where the better players win, where the most strategies are possible, and where people can simply have a good time. At the end of the day, of course, this is a very, widespread hobby for tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people, and it's just an honor to be in this position as a leader with this platform, having however many hundred people or 1,000 people listen to this video right now. I just want to say thank you, by the way, to everyone who's stick with us, over the generations, and just giving me an opportunity to rise through the ranks and be where I am now. Of course, it's really humbling when you just look at all the views, all the likes, all the comments, all these things, and waking up to 218 alerts in the morning. Yeah, it's a little scary. Like, oh my God, what's happened? Is my metagame breaking? And yeah, it's very broken. Spoiler alert. But just that premise is there. But anyway, we're at we're about 7 minutes in. We've discussed terastallizing enough. We're actually gonna get into the Pokemon now, and we're gonna try again 2 to 3 minutes per Pokemon. We don't need to do anything too crazy. I'm going to link this post as well, so you're going to be able to read this yourself and click on these little posts I hyperlinked, which have people in our metagame discussion thread actually giving their thoughts. So there's a lot of data on these Pokemon despite being only a day in. So Flutter Mane is the first Pokemon, and it's really not particularly surprising. Flutter Mane has 135 base special attack, speed, and special defense. Special attack and speed, of course, are the focal stats I'd like to point out here, as it is a very strong and fast special attacker. It has a dual typing of Ghost and Fairy. In my opinion, two of the best types offensively, as is especially on the special side. Couple that with the fact that it has access to things like fire coverage. Terra Blast can obviously do very well. While it's very fragile on the physical end, there's ways, again, for example, if I make this Terra Fire, it'll resist Bullet Punch from Scizor, or Steel moves altogether, and suddenly, that's a threat that's neutralized, if you will. It also has ability Photosynthesis, which can, Protosynthesis, I apologize, I mispronounced it there, I used the actual word, which, either in Sun, or when holding a item, which is common in the metagame, and common on it in particular, gives it a 50% boost to its best stat. So normally we'll be seeing that as, say, its speed. So it basically outruns every single Scarfer, and it is very scary when revenge killing it is no longer possible for outspeeding, and then you're like, wait, it can change its typing, and it can't be revenge killed either by priority. It's like, damn, I have a very limited pool of defense Pokemon to actually check it, and that's because it's so strong. Not many things check it defensively. Offensively, it's a guessing game when it comes to the Terra forms. Truth be told, it's just very hard to contain. It also has access to, Calm Mind it could do on Sun teams. It also has an item slot that's accessible because it still gets the Photosynthesis. Its offensive profile, in my opinion, it's got Shadow Ball, it's got Fairy coverage, Fire coverage, is really awesome. It's a premier Terastallizer in the metagame. There are a couple of, dark or normal type Pokemon that may be able to keep it in check. especially like someone like Blissey, who tries the right move. Right, there's a new Pokemon that has an appropriate defensive profile for it as well, but it's pretty hard to see it staying in metagame unless we see a lot more of those Pokemon, and there's really only 1 or 2 or 3 of them in the game, and picking from that pool when you got passive defensive Pokemon, they're really the only ones that could check it, and there's a very limited amount, and Pokemon wouldn't even be OU otherwise. We're at a point where we're saying, is this too much for the metagame, especially when, we're starting seeing Scarf Flutter Mane for opposing Flutter Mane, just, to counter itself, to revenge kill itself. We're starting to see all sorts of odd, bizarre countermeasures. It's just already warping the tier, or already only in day 1. It's only been out for like 24, 25 hours as opposed to this, so if you want my honest opinion, if I had to guess, Flutter Mane will be gone within 3 days from this. Maybe even a little shorter. It'll probably be gone in the first blow. It's really just that good. I introduced it by saying Flutter Mane has been that guy since the moment SCU dropped, and there's no other way to put it. Flutter Mane, in and of itself, is just a really dynamic, potent Pokemon, and I am very excited, to see what it'll do in Ubers, but I don't think it's going to last in OU too long. Obviously, there's a chance I wake up tomorrow and everyone's invented new ways to play around it, and it's balanced. Do I think that's particularly likely, though? No. Unfortunately, I do not. Let's move on. Houndstone and its signature move, Last Respects, going to be a huge topic for discussion. Houndstone itself, 72 HP, 101 attack, 100 defense, abysmal special attack, good 97 special defense and 68 speed. Looks like a pretty mediocre Pokemon, Remember threat utility moves with Mono Ghost typing would be a nice spin blocker in lower tiers. Fluffy, both buffs that physical defense a lot. But, man, it doesn't look like it's an OU Pokemon. And you see this 50 base power move, and you're like, okay, what's your point? It just looks like an in-game cheese. Nothing too substantial competitively. Well, let me tell you something. Read that line. Did you read it? Okay, let me read it for you. Fine. Power increases by 50 with each fainted party member. People speculated, it's going to raise by 10. It's going to raise by 5, 15. No big deal. The best it can be is 100, 110, 120 base power move, right? No problem. No. It raises by 50 for every single kill. If all 5 of the Pokemon on your team besides from Houndstone are dead, your Houndstone has a 300 base power stab move off of its already pretty decent 101 base attack. That, coupled with the fact that it has the ability Sand Rush, which in Sand gives it 2 times as much speed, and Hippowdon and Tyranitar are both viable in the game, is scary. In an offensive metagame, we're seeing so many trades earlier on in games. It's very possible to see yourself, in a game state where you have 2 or 3 or even 4 Pokemon dead pretty early, and they do as well. And suddenly, you've got a Pokemon outrunning everything due to 2 times as much speed with a move that's 200, 250, or even 300 base power. Off its stab, with no chance of missing, no recoil, no stat reduction. It's just that good. It even has ample PP if for some reason someone's switching that many of them. Dark types are being 2-hit KO'd, if not 1-hit KO'd later on in games, depending on how many party members they have left and how durable they are. Normal types are few and far between, but they are really the primary means of counterplays of this. Houndstone is, for all practical intents and purposes, completely cheesy. It is a Pokemon that has one dimension, it has one method, one way to quote-unquote go, and it does it so well due to the nature of the metagame and how strong it gets when it scales up later on in the game due to all the Pokemon being gone. It lacks an abundance of great qualities, but it has one substantially great quality and the supporting cast with Sand Rush to really play that off. That's how I put it. It is the epitome of polarizing. It is undoubtedly one of the most limiting and restrictive forces to team building. A properly set up Houndstone is so unbearably stupid in the late game scenarios. It is so hard to stop. There is not much you can do. I will note that the move, Last Respects, is actually part of a tier in controversy right now, a topic that I've been discussing with my council, with tier leadership throughout the site, and many other people as well. And that, do we ban the move, Last Respects, which is clearly what would make Houndstone broken if it were to get banned, or do we ban the Pokemon? In the case of this, it's interesting because you can't really call a move broken if only one Pokemon gets it, because it's only broken when it's used by Pokemon. A move itself can't be broken. You gauge broken from Pokemon fundamentally. So if a move were to break multiple Pokemon, then you could say, okay, if X and Y doesn't use this move, they wouldn't be broken, so the move is the link between these two, so that's what makes it broken. But if it's only in one Pokemon, then you have to focus on the Pokemon rather than the element. If that's confusing to you, let me just spell it out. If a move is only viable on one Pokemon, you can't ban the move. You can ban the Pokemon only, because the move is a subset of the Pokemon. If the move is viable on multiple Pokemon, and it breaks every single one that has it, or 2 Pokemon that have it, then you look at the move. Make enough sense? I'd hope so. If not, feel free to ask in the comments. PM me on Discord or Smalgon. I always respond as quickly as I can, of course. Right now, nothing else gets this, as you can see. However, with the release of Pokemon Home, the Basculegon Pokemon, I'm not sure to pronounce it, with adaptability, gets it. And it's going to be even stronger and more broken than this. So, my thought is maybe we preemptively ban the move. That way, we save Houndstone being viable and Basculegon being viable in whatever tiers, OU or maybe UU or RU later on. We cut the collateral and we ban the move that's going to break both. But we don't really have proof of Home. It's all, speculative. It's all rumor-based. So there's a lot of hastiness there. We also don't really have substantial proof that Houndstone's broken. It's only day 1, and some people are reporting more mixed results as well. So we're going to have to keep an open mind. I think that it's a little too cheesy. It's a little too substantial for the metagame, but we're definitely going to have to keep an open mind and see what happens from there. And it'll be very interesting to see if a move that could potentially scale up to 300 base power has any salvageability in the competitive arena, or if it just might be a little too OP. Be sure to stay tuned and find out, because I am very interested. This is atop my list of interesting topics. Next up, we have Chien-Pao or Chien-Pao. I'm not sure if it's Chien or Chen. I'm so sorry. Pronunciation has admittedly slipped me. It is a basically Mega Weavile Pokemon with an ability that diminishes the defensive prowess of the opponent by 25%. It has the Ice Dark typing like Weavile. It's a very strong, speed and attack stat like Weavile with middling bulk. A bit better. A bit more complete, but nothing substantial. But its ability is called Sword of Ruin, and it lowers the defense of the opponent by 25%. That's huge. Suddenly, things like Corviknight, have slightly above average defense profile instead of like Prolific. Average defense Pokemon have, much lower defense, and so on and so forth. It's just a straight 25% reduction. It's less than -1, but it's still 25% more damage, essentially, if you will. And that's huge. So offensive counterplay to this is what you got to focus on, because suddenly defensively nothing can really wall a Pokemon that strong, and offensively it's limited because not only do you have high speed, but on top of that you've got access to Sucker Punch and I believe Ice Shard as well as priority options, and you can Terastalize to potentially priority. Again, another thing, like if you're facing a Scizor and it goes for Bullet Punch, you Terastalize and you become a different typing. You can only do this once in battle, but suddenly you can take out that Scizor and resist a Bullet Punch. It goes such a long way. It's absolutely a more wild prospect than just about any Pokemon we've seen because of the defense reduction. I've never seen anything that like an ability like this, and I just think it's so cool how it can kind of diminish the prevalence of walls, but I also find it to be pretty broken. It's a very dynamic offensive profile. It's fast, it's strong, and it makes walls mediocre, just as a concept, which is just such a crazy, wild thing. Obviously, it still can be quote-unquote checked, but I don't think there's true counters to Chien-Pao at the moment, unless you dig really deep. The Fire Dark Pokemon does pretty well, but even that is, limited. I get it doesn't get close combat or Earthquake, so that does help it. No knockoff for like boots on that either, but with enough chip earlier on, you can really break through just about anything. So definitely on the radar, probably my number 3 or number 4. Moving on, we got Palafin and Palafin Hero. So Palafin looks like an ugly, fat-ass whale Pokemon that like you'd find on Route 4 in the game, and you'd use it, and then you'd realize after like a moment it's like really bad, even if it's fully evolved already. But let's say you switch Palafin out once, and then you switch it back in, and you notice, wait a minute, my goofy-looking whale fucker looks real awesome now. Why is that? Why has he got a hop in his step? Why is he going jiggy with it? And that is because Palafin turns into Palafin Hero, and that allows it to get 160 base attack and really make the most of its move pool. It gets Jet Punch, which is a signature priority move. Water type, I believe 60 base power. It's pretty awesome off that base 160 attack, be it with a Choice Band or even just max attack. Flip Turn can be run for pivoting, alongside coverage moves like Close Combat. However, you could also run a bulk up set, which I've seen a little bit more of. It gets options like Taunt and Drain Punch. Wave Crash is also a strong physical move. It does give a little recoil, but I believe it's 130 base power. Again, Close Combat is great. You can run Taunt, Drain Punch, and a bulk gear set. with bulk up. But really, another thing that this is for, it's a great Terra Blast user. It's really awesome at you get a typing and then suddenly they can break through opposing bulky waters, because breaking through things like Toxpex is really the only thing this thing's missing at the moment. I guess in things like Dragapult resist both stabs too, like Urshifu. Oh, sorry, but both water and fighting. Fighting is not a stab like Urshifu, but it's got the water fighting thing going with close combat and Drain Punch, so easy confused. But yeah, no, it's very strong. It is wallable, but it also can get a little out of hand due to 160 base attack and decent speed, and the opportunity cost being so little, just one switch in and switch out. So definitely cool. Probably not in my top couple of this list, but it's definitely something you should try and use a lot. And I think over time it might get more and more broken when it gets a little less overwhelmed by the madness going on in this metagame. So yeah, next up is going to be another Pokemon that is joining the pantheon of offensive dragon types that we see plague the competitive waters over the generations. It's just another strong, fast dragon type. It also is another boost energy Pokemon, the photosynthesis abuser. Like the aforementioned, sorry, I'm forgetting, Flutter main. Yeah, that's a really crazy concept that they introduced this generation. Anyway, it's got a nice, I think 580 or 590 base stat total. Dark plus Dragon is awesome. Obviously, the big gaping hole in that is Fairy, but it does get access to Iron Head, and it can Terra Blast its way through Fairy types as well. Earthquake is another option on it. We've even seen things like Acrobatics with Terra as well, which could really carve through the right things there. It gets U-turn for pivoting too. Dragon Dance is really its main way of being a win condition / sweeper if it's one just be a dedicated breaker or pivot. Defensively, it is what it is, but offensively, 139 attack, 119 speed. I push it over. In my opinion, this isn't one of the top 2 or 3 broken Pokemon, but probably number 4 or 5, just because its typing does leave it very susceptible to Fairy and weak to fighting, but it can Terra around those things. But there's also, a certain opportunity cost with that, a certain support or mechanical reliance on it, whereas, things like Flutter Mane, in my opinion, broken standalone. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. I definitely think that there's potential for Rolling Moon to be more of an Uberman style, but I think it might be able to stay in the metagame for a while. I'm curious to see how it'll do with Terra Blast. I think it might become one of the primary abusers of it. I think that really fits it well. The typing morph can just go ham, and I also think as a Dragon Dancer, it's one of the best uses of it in the tier, so that's always fun because it's a really cool mechanical move. We're going to go ahead and move on, though. Iron Valiant, or Valiant. I think Iron Valiant is the way to pronounce it. I apologize. It's kind of like a Steel-type Gallade-looking badass piece of you-know-what, and I really haven't used it yet, admittedly, but it's another booster energy beneficiary with this great, fighting plus Fairy stab that's awesome. Swords Dance to bolster that as well, and given the bolster energy, its highest stat is going to be, its highest numerical stat, not base stat, total stat, is going to be speed with the nature, so it's going to be +1 speed, so it's really hard to revenge kill unless you've got a faster Choice Scarfer or a faster booster energy Pokemon, which fortunately it's doing, and you could Terra or on priority. And you see the problem here, you're kind of losing ways to actually beat these Pokemon. It's just divulging into a kill metagame, and that's fun at first, but it's also not much of a competitive game so much as it's just a crapshoot. So yeah, and this is another one that falls in there. With coverage, it's great. It can really outrun everything. It's very hard to minimize, and I feel like it's kind of a weaker, differently typed. It's okay, the offensive presence of it is suffocating like Terra. It's like Flutter Mane, in my opinion. It's just it's slightly slower. It's slightly less adapted metagames. It's physical, and there's some drawbacks in it. It's got a couple more weaknesses, maybe a couple more reliance on Terra, but in my eyes, it's going to be, in that category. And I think it's going to end up over, but I'd like to see it start OU and maybe, we can go from it a little bit. I'm curious to see what its set mix is going to be like. It's got a couple good coverage moves, knockoffs, ice punches of the world, and so on and so forth. I believe it gets a psychic coverage as well from the Gallade crossover. So, yeah. Definitely, like these new forms, the booster energy concept and the abilities, but I definitely find it also to be a little pressing, so I'm curious to see, such a potent puncher, if you will, on Iron Valiant. Is it going to potentially remain OU? Is it going to go in the first wave, second wave? We'll wait and see. Next up, and last but certainly not least, we got Cyclizar. One of my favorite Pokemon in the new generation due to its nice design. I really like it. It's a cool dragon type that's more finesse, regenerator, with rapid spin. I actually kind of love that. Unfortunately, though, the utility gets a little out of hand here with Shed Tail. And Shed Tail is actually, you know, what even can come close to putting on the radar. And I haven't seen enough Shed Tail, but basically, imagine combining the move Substitute with the move Baton Pass and putting it in one move slot and adding it on a faster generator Pokemon. And that's what we have here. And it also is a normal type, by the way. So, like, resisting Ghosts has been so crucial. It can, like, switch into a Ghost. Like, you can't check it. Flutterman in particular, because Moonblast is right there. But, like, you know, it's cool to, like, have in your pocket, at least as a Ghost immunity. And it has got speed. And it doesn't hit, like, too soft. It tends to run special because it's move pool. 85 special attack does suck for it, I'll say that much. But, yeah, no. Shed Tail is, like, sub-pass the move. Pair it with Regenerator. It's nuts. It's super abusable. In my opinion, it's more of a catalyst than like a problem, but I think it'll probably end up being restricted or banned at some point. Another Pokemon, Orthworm, gets it. I haven't really seen it, let alone used it, but, you know, Shed Tail enabling, you know, more of the slew of strong attackers, OP Pokemon that we see in the new generation, especially ones I just discussed, to get in behind a substitute is just so awesome. I really love that right now, but it's also definitely, like, not the most competitive, not the most balanced, concept. So yeah, that's great. Really, it's a lot. So yeah, what do you guys think about the radar? What's on your radar that I missed? What do you think should go, what shouldn't go? You know, let me know. Obviously, we're not going to ban too much too early. We want to, you know, let people play with their new toys, let people have fun, but we also want to try and start inching towards balance. So yeah, again, this is still just day one. We've been going at this. I literally haven't stopped all day since like 6 a.m. So just something I missed, something I said wrong, just let me know. Be nice about it. No need to be rude, you know. We're on the same team here. We all want to have fun and enjoy the metagame the most possible. Obviously, you know, the big thing looming over all of our heads is terastalizing, and we're going to have to see how that goes. But in the meantime, guys, this is the Radar. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you all have a great day. Like, comment, subscribe. All right, later. Bye.